Can you introduce yourself?
My name is Elieser Duran. I am Director of Esports at New York Tech.
What is your educational background?
A bachelor's in fine arts for graphic design in 2017.
What is your own personal esports and gaming background?
I play a lot of League of Legends right now. I started in League of Legends in about 2012. That's kind of what opened me to esports in general.
What is the difference between an esports coach and an esports manager?
Esports coaches are more directed towards specific games. They are focused on like the ins and outs and strategies of a specific game, while managers are kind of managing multiple teams, making sure that they're doing everything they need to do for registration, practices, etc.
What are the responsibilities of an esports coach?
For coaches, they are responsible for in and out strategies depending on the game. There are certain, like League of Legends has picks and drafts and certain things, certain strategies that need to be done before game, and other ones are dealing with mechanics, making sure the players are mechanically adept with everything they need to do.
Why do esports teams need a coach?
Because it honestly gives them a big advantage over teams that don't have coaches. Having someone who's 100% dedicated to the strategy so the players can just focus on just playing the game is a really big advantage overall.
How many esports teams and game titles do you coach and manage?
Right now for New York Tech, we are at eight. We're at 8 games and 12 teams.
Do you also manage a gaming lab or other esports venue?
Yeah, before COVID, I managed the esports lab at New York Tech at Old Westbury campus.
Can you describe a typical day as an esports coach or manager?
Normal day is going through. I keep a very close index or like a Google sheet on everything that my players are doing in terms of what tournaments that they're playing in, making sure they're practicing. If I have to make sure that I log in any scrimmages, and then making sure that all the teams, especially during this time when we're prepping for the 2021 season, making sure that they're all registered for all their matches, making sure they're registered for all their tournaments, and making sure that they're scheduling their scrims so they can have practice time before matches start.
What is the typical weekly schedule of one of your esports players in relation to practice?
The week usually starts depending on where their matches are during the week. We usually try to have like a scrim, pretty much like a team practice before that. After that, it's pretty much just they play normally. Usually, a lot of these players play by themselves outside of practices, so they play normally, and then they do at least a scrimmage to then go into their matches, whatever day of the week that is, and then into usually they do like a VOD review after that, and then maybe one more practice for the weekends.
Can you just describe what a VOD review is?
VOD review is when you pretty much just watch over. It's pretty much for people who normally do like sports. It's pretty much called eating tape, where you kind of just watch the entire match that you had or whatever scrimmage you had to kind of break down the mistakes that were made or things that were done correctly and kind of like reinforce those.
Do you have your players do any physical exercise? And if so, how often?
We don't require any physical exercise right now, but it's hopefully whenever campus is open again, we can actually start having physical exercise in our weight room.
Do you have the players do anything to warm up before gameplay?
We usually tell them just to play some normal games, not ranked, because normal games are a little bit less. You don't have to worry about just the fierceness of competition then. It's kind of just warming up mechanical skills. And after that, I usually just try to remind them just to stretch a little bit, stretch their wrists and stuff like that, and before games.
Do you have your players do anything specific after gameplay?
After gameplay, after matches, it's kind of just we just wait. We don't like to do robot review directly after, depending on the team. Some of them like to, but usually it's just kind of like a cool down period after like the heat of competition.
Can you describe a typical esports practice from beginning to end?
A certain time the players get in together and they get together for their matches, usually on Discord right now because of COVID, and they would then get into a scrimmage. We make sure that our team captain's in contact with their team captain, make sure that they have their practice time set. As soon as that happens, we go into the match. They play their matches, and then after their practice time, they usually do a little bit of VOD review right after that, and then to a cool down into just hanging out on the Discord.
How do you teach esports players game specific strategies and tactics?
It's usually you would find for coaches that would usually just be kind of just watching their specific gameplay. Sometimes if there's one of our coaches wants to work closer with the player, they'll ask the player to play, and then they'll just share their screen so they can kind of break down what they're doing in real time. And at that point, it's still I've just muscle memory, just kind of playing it over and over again until you kind of get it without thinking.
Can you give an example within a specific game title of how you teach specific strategies and tactics?
For certain games, like let's say like Overwatch, we'll usually go into like an aim trainer, and for example for some of our DPS, kind of just hitting a lot of targets very quickly. For Valorant, it's also a lot of aim trainers, and then kind of just going through just kind of your aim, because you have to be able to shoot faster or aim better than your opponent. And then after that, it would be for specific characters. Let's say in Valorant again, it would be going to the map and testing out, making sure that you can hit all of your smokes or something like that when you need to.
How often do esports athletes need to practice to be successful at that game?
It depends on the game. I would say a good multiple times a week. Don't have many practices because it's kind of getting the teams together. Usually it's the players playing by themselves and like their own goal to be the best at that game.
How do you teach certain mechanical movements within a game to esports players?
Usually it would be we'd be physically in a room together, but we can't do that in COVID. So in terms of mechanicals, it's still you let them know what they need to work on, and they go into game and they play normals or they play ranked as much as they possibly can to get that muscle memory down.
How much experience or skill does an esports coach need in a specific game to be able to coach it effectively?
Experience is kind of just I would a lot of people would say rank, but I don't think rank is 100% on that. I think it would be just having very in-depth knowledge on that game. I would say at least like a couple like at least a year of experience in terms of just knowing how to break stuff down, watching VOD reviews that aren't necessarily from your team, and kind of just knowing the ins and out of that specific game. I don't think rank is a factor, too much a factor, but having time with the team to kind of know that they know what the game is about is important.
What changes in your typical day as a coach dependent on whether the athletes are in season or off season?
Off season, I don't message them that much. I try to let them cool down because usually they're playing for 3 months, like every week for 3 months. So it's usually I don't message them much. Usually towards the end of the off season and the beginning of like in season, I start messaging them for like registration and stuff like that. So kind of just like taking a little bit of a break. Sometimes usually we'll have like practices, but not as involved. They won't be as tough as the other ones.
How do collegiate esports players manage being full-time students and athletes?
It's usually just straight up time management. You have to make sure that you're balancing as much as you possibly can. That's why collegiate is very interesting because they do come to NYT not for esports specifically. They're coming to NYT for an education, so their grades come first, and they have to make sure they keep their GPAs up to stay on the teams.
How do you coordinate all the practices? Do you do it after their academics are done at night, or how does that work?
Usually it's at night. During the day is kind of weird. Usually a lot more people are free at night, and then we kind of just figured out what days during the week are best for them, for a team specifically.
How do scholarships work for collegiate esports players?
Scholarships work in the same way that normal scholarships work for traditional sports players. They play them, they use them just to make sure they don't have to worry too much about their financial situation, and that way they're playing esports and they're doing it for a reason, not doing it for a reason, but they're doing it with money there. So it sometimes fires them up a little bit more.
And does that really work by recruiting them, or do they usually just come to the school and then do it?
If you have scholarships, it's easier to recruit. If you do not have scholarships, you're kind of just going by whoever's at your school. So going from just not non-scholarships to scholarships really does help a lot in terms of recruiting and be able to get actual people who weren't originally considering your school to considering your school because they have a scholarship program.
What do you think are the biggest challenges as an esports coach and manager?
I think it's just time management. A lot of our players they have jobs and they have education things to worry about. So it's kind of just time management, making sure that everybody's online at a certain time, or making sure that they're doing everything they need to do to be able to be the best at what they need to do.
Do you think it's realistic to be a full-time esports coach or manager right now in today's market?
I would say yes. I think there is a market for being an esports manager. I think it's kind of just finding those opportunities and having that experience and making sure that you're doing what you need to do. So when that opportunity does roll around, you can say that you have that opportunity.
And do you think those opportunities are going to increase in the future?
Yeah, without a doubt.
What advice do you have for anyone who is trying to become an esports coach or manager?
If you're going to become a coach, I recommend knowing the ins and outs of your game to the last detail. And kind of that's either by playing the game a lot, watching other professional players do, watching strategies and breaking things down in your own way. If you're a manager, I would say just start managing as much as you possibly can. If that's administration, having experience in that is really important. Or if you have the amount of time, then I would start up your own team and really just start doing stuff at a smaller scale. So then you have that experience when it comes around.
Is there really any educational requirements with it?
Not right now. There are some schools that are offering like actual degree programs for that, but right now I didn't have a degree in administration, so I feel like it's a lot of esports right now is basically experience at networking. So that's what I recommend, getting to know people in the space, so then when they are looking for someone, you're the first person they think about.
How can people get in contact with you?
You guys can go to NYT_esports on Twitter, and it's NYT Cybears on Facebook and Instagram.
Okay, thank you for your time.
No problem.